Lieutenant Marcus Wade had been stationed on the Valorian diplomatic cruiser Eternal Dawn for 3 months, serving as Earth's military liaison to the alien fleet. In that time, he'd learned to navigate the complex social hierarchies of Valorian culture, mastered enough of their language to get by without a translator, and maintained strictly professional relationships with every member of the crew. Until tonight. Ambassador Lyrazen stood in the doorway of his assigned quarters, her orange skin luminous in the corridor's dim lighting, her blonde hair loose around her shoulders instead of bound in the formal style she always wore during diplomatic functions. Her violet eyes held an intensity that made Marcus's breath catch. "May I come in?" she asked quietly. Marcus stepped aside, his heart pounding. "Of course, Ambassador." She entered, and the door slid shut behind her with a soft hiss. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. Marcus had worked closely with Lyrazen since his assignment began, negotiating treaties, coordinating cultural exchanges, planning joint scientific ventures. He'd admired her intelligence, her diplomatic skill, her dry sense of humor. And yes, he'd noticed her beauty, though he'd never allowed himself to act on the attraction he felt. "Please," she said softly, "tonight call me Lyra." "Lyra," Marcus repeated, the name feeling intimate on his tongue. "What's this about?" She moved closer, close enough that he could see the subtle patterns in her skin that marked her noble lineage, close enough to catch the faint scent of the Valorian incense she favored. "Tomorrow the treaty negotiations conclude. The day after you return to Earth, our professional relationship ends." "I know," Marcus said. The knowledge had been weighing on him for weeks. "Tonight is the last night we will be alone together," Lyra continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "After tomorrow I will be married to Lord Kethvar in an arranged union meant to strengthen political alliances between our houses. It is my duty. I have known of this arrangement since childhood." Marcus felt his chest tight. "Lyra, tonight only, human, love me now," she said, reaching up to touch his face with fingers that trembled slightly. "After this night, we're done. We return to our duties, our responsibilities, our separate worlds. But please give me this one night to choose for myself, to be with someone I actually want to be with." Marcus caught her hand, holding it against his cheek. "Are you sure if anyone found out?" "No one will know," Lyra assured him. "My security detail believes I am meditating in preparation for tomorrow's ceremony. Your schedule shows you have the evening off. We have perhaps 6 hours before anyone will question our absence." "6 hours," Marcus said quietly. "6 hours to pretend we live in a different reality," Lyra said. "One where duty doesn't dictate every choice, where I am not bound by centuries of tradition, where you and I could actually—" She didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. Marcus had spent countless nights imagining exactly that, a reality where he and Lyra could explore whatever this connection between them was. Where political obligations and interstellar distances didn't stand in their way. "If we do this," Marcus said carefully, "tomorrow will be even harder." "Tomorrow will be impossible regardless," Lyra replied, her violet eyes glistening. "At least this way I will have something beautiful to remember, something that was mine alone to choose." Marcus pulled her close, and she came willingly into his arms. Her head fit perfectly against his shoulder, and he could feel her heartbeat, faster than human but still recognizable, still reassuringly alive. "Tell me about your world," Lyra whispered. "Not the official reports or the diplomatic briefings. Tell me about the Marcus Wade who exists outside of all this. They moved to the small seating area in his quarters, settling onto the couch. Marcus kept his arm around her shoulders, and she curled against him as naturally as if they'd done this 1,000 times before. I grew up in Colorado, Marcus began, in the mountains. My family had a cabin near Rocky Mountain National Park. Some of my best memories are hiking those trails with my dad, watching the sunrise from the peaks. It sounds beautiful, Lyra said. I have seen images of Earth mountains, but I imagine experiencing them is different. Completely different, Marcus agreed. The air is thin up there, crisp and cold. Everything smells like pine and snow. At night, the stars are so clear you feel like you could reach up and touch them. Lyra smiled against his shoulder. Now you understand how I feel about the Aurora Nebula near my homeworld. I used to sit in my family's observatory for hours, watching the colors shift and change. Purple, blue, green, like living art painted across the sky. Tell me more, Marcus urged, his fingers gently stroking her hair. Tell me about Lyrazen before she became Ambassador Lyrazen. She laughed softly, a sound he'd rarely heard. That Lyra was much more rebellious. I wanted to be a starship pilot, not a diplomat. I used to sneak into the flight simulators at the military academy and practice maneuvers for hours. You wanted to fly? More than anything, Lyra admitted. But my family needed an ambassador, not a pilot. So I set aside those dreams and studied diplomacy, politics, alliance building. I told myself it was enough. Is it? Marcus asked quietly. Lyra was silent for a moment. It has to be, she finally said. But tonight I don't want to think about what has to be. Tonight I just want to be Lyra with someone who sees me, not the ambassador, not the political asset, just me. Marcus tightened his arms around her. I see you, Lyra, I have since the first day we met. She looked up at him, her violet eyes searching his face. Tell me what you see. I see someone brilliant, Marcus said, touching her cheek gently. Someone who negotiates peace between species with patience and wisdom. Someone with a sense of humor that catches people off guard. Someone who stays up late reviewing proposals because she wants to get every detail right. Someone who pretends to be made of steel but has the kindest heart I've ever encountered. Lyra's breath hitched. Marcus, I see someone who deserves to choose her own path, he continued. Someone who should be free to fly among those stars she loves so much. Someone who shouldn't be bound by arrangements made before she was even born. A tear slid down Lyra's orange cheek, and Marcus gently wiped it away. But most of all, he said softly, I see someone I've fallen completely, impossibly in love with, even though I knew from the start that loving you would break my heart. Lyra made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. I love you too, she whispered. I've tried so hard not to. I've told myself every day that it was impossible, that it was foolish, that it would only cause pain. But I can't help it, Marcus. When I'm with you, I feel like I can breathe. Marcus kissed her then, gently at first, then deeper as she responded. Her lips were softer than he'd imagined, her skin warmer. She tasted faintly of the Valorian tea she favored, sweet and exotic. His hands tangled in her blonde hair, pulling her closer, and she pressed against him with equal urgency. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lyra rested her forehead against his. 6 hours, she said again. Then let's not waste a single moment, Marcus replied. They talked for hours, sharing stories from their childhoods, their dreams, their fears. Lyra told him about the first time she'd seen a human in person. How surprised she'd been that humans looked so different from Valorians, yet so hauntingly similar in all the ways that mattered. Marcus told her about the first time he'd seen the eternal dawn approaching Earth, how he'd felt both terrified and exhilarated at the prospect of leaving his world behind. "Did you want this assignment?" Lyra asked, tracing idle patterns on his chest. "Yes and no," Marcus admitted. "I wanted to serve, to be part of something historic, but I was scared too, scared of being alone out here so far from everything familiar. And now I can't imagine being anywhere else," Marcus said, looking down at her. "These 3 months with you have been the best of my life." Lyra's eyes filled with fresh tears. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't make this harder than it already is." "I'm sorry," Marcus said, kissing her forehead. "Let's talk about something else. Tell me, if you could go anywhere in the galaxy, where would you go?" Lyra thought for a moment. "There's a planet called Thessara on the far edge of known space. It has bioluminescent forests that glow in the dark, every plant, every tree giving off its own light. I've always wanted to see them." "Sounds incredible," Marcus said. "I'd love to see that with you." "And if I could?" Lyra asked. "If circumstances were different," Marcus pulled her closer. "If circumstances were different, I'd take you to Earth, to those mountains I told you about. We'd hike to the highest peak and watch the sunrise together. Then I'd take you to the ocean, let you feel sand between your toes and salt spray on your face. We'd travel the whole world, every continent, every culture." "It sounds perfect," Lyra said wistfully. "It could be," Marcus said. "Lyra, come with me. When I leave tomorrow, come with me. We could." "Don't," Lyra interrupted, sitting up. "Please, Marcus, don't ask me to choose. You know I can't." "Why not?" Marcus demanded, frustration bleeding into his voice. "Because of duty. Because of some arrangement made decades ago. You have a right to your own life, Lyra." "Do I?" she asked, her voice breaking. "My marriage to Kethvar secures peace between two of the most powerful houses in the Valorian Empire. If I refuse, it could trigger conflicts that might escalate into civil war. Thousands could die. How can I put my personal happiness above thousands of lives?" Marcus ran his hands through his hair, knowing she was right, but hating it anyway. "I'm sorry. I know it's not fair to ask." Lyra took his face in her hands. "In another life, I would say yes in a heartbeat. In another life, we would have met under different circumstances, just two people with no obligations, no impossible choices. In that life, I would follow you anywhere." "But this is the life we have," Marcus said quietly. "This is the life we have," Lyra agreed. She kissed him again, pouring all her love and longing and regret into the kiss. "So let's make the most of the time we have left." They held each other close as the hours ticked away, sometimes talking, sometimes sitting in comfortable silence, sometimes kissing with desperate tenderness. Marcus memorized every detail, the way Lyra's hair felt between his fingers, the sound of her laugh, the warmth of her skin against his. As dawn approached, signaled by the gradual brightening of the viewport showing the distant stars, Lyra stirred in Marcus's arms. "I have to go," she whispered. "I know," Marcus said, though he made no move to release her. Lyra sat up, beginning the painful process of straightening her clothes, smoothing her hair back into its formal style. Marcus watched, feeling like each adjustment was a wall going back up between them. When she was ready, she stood and looked down at him. "Tomorrow, at the treaty signing, we'll be professional," Marcus assured her. "No one will know." "Thank you," Lyra said, "for tonight, for seeing me, for loving me even though it's impossible," Marcus finished. He stood and pulled her into one final embrace. I don't regret it, Lyra, not a single moment. Neither do I, she whispered against his chest. Then she pulled away, and Marcus forced himself to let her go. At the door, she paused and looked back at him. In another life, Marcus Wade. In another life, Lyra Zen, he replied. Then she was gone, the door sliding shut behind her with terrible finality. Marcus stood alone in his quarters as the first light of the alien sun filtered through the viewport. Tomorrow, he would stand beside Lyra at the treaty signing, maintaining perfect professional composure. The day after, he would board the transport back to Earth, leaving her behind forever. But tonight she had been his and he had been hers, and for 6 perfect hours they had chosen each other despite the impossibility of it all. It would have to be enough. Even though he knew with crushing certainty that it never would be.